Welcome back, fan stands, to week 6. This is the finals between Grixis Arcanist. As you see here, you play a lot of disruption, and eventually you are able to snowball with a threat. Played by Connor. And we've got Jonah's 4-color ramp deck, where you ramp into a great planeswalker or creature like Phyrexian Obliterator or the Scarab God. Here's game 1. Alright, we're in game 1. Looks like we have Connor on the left playing Arcanist, Jonah on the right playing that 4-color ramp pile. Jonah keeping a hand of 7. Connor making a mulligan decision to be at 6. And we'll have Connor start us off with a land and double Mox start into Krenko. Passing the turn over to Jonah, who has a Black Lotus in hand. Plays a Taiga. And let's see what they can do with this Lotus start. We're going to crack it for blue, cast Ancestral. Nissa, Mana Vault, Birds of Paradise. So we could develop our mana out here by playing the Vault and the Bird. Or we could use mana to keep cycling through cards with Probe. Looks like we're going to develop our mana. This sets us up nicely for Nissa next turn. Pass over to Connor, who gets in with Krenko. Going to add a counter and make 2 goblins. And Jonah takes the 2. Likes the card with Opt. And it looks like it might have been Despise. Yeah, so we're going to throw Jonah off that plan of casting Nissa, likely. As the Obliterator's not coming down anytime soon, and Liliana still requires another black source of mana. We could end up getting there with Probe, but right now the only way to cast Probe is by tapping that Mana Vault, and that's going to set Jonah back substantially on mana. And yes, it looks like Nissa is the choice here. Draw for turn, a Birds of Paradise. So no land, but still have that bird out. And yeah, we're going to tap the Mana Vault for Probe. This lets you draw 3 and then discard 2 cards. And if you pay the kicker cost, your opponent also discards 2 cards. Unfortunately, didn't end up hitting very many lands. Looks like we hit another Birds of Paradise. Maybe hit an Underground Sea. I can't quite make out that card. But pitch the Wheel of Fortune and looking to pitch another card here. Here in Season 9, this is already only turn 2, but every decision matters so much. So we just had to think about what our plan was. And here we go. Going to continue developing out our mana. Maybe heading towards that Liliana, though Liliana Edict to Creatures isn't going to get us very far. So maybe looking to gum things up with the Scarab God. But in the meantime, Krenko's going to get to work. Them and their goblins hidden in for 5. Making more goblins. Edict not going to be effective anytime soon. And we're just going to keep putting on the pressure. Grixis Arcanist casting Bloodwater Entity. And we'll put Despise on top. Really not giving Jonah much time. Here we didn't pay for the Mana Vault. Went straight to drawing a card, so we're going to count that as if it wasn't untapped. Jonah taking 1. a slight downside of Mana Vault. But we'll keep deploying our Birds of Paradise, and if we don't have a land here, then not being able to untap that Mana Vault means that we're not going to be able to play our casualties or play our Liliana for next turn, unless we spike another land. Let's see. Kranko will be bashing in for 5, 9. So it's not quite lethal. Oh, it is lethal now with that prowess trigger on the Bloodwater entity. So Jonah's going to be forced to chump block here, which means that won't be able to just rip off the top a land source and cast a casualties or anything. At this point, Jonah's going to need a card that I don't think they have in their list to deal with this board. And this is the strength of the Arcanist deck. We had one threat that just snowballed along while we played a couple disruptive spells. And right now, Jonah's a little too far behind, I think, to get back in here. And here we go, Ring Around the Rosie. Bloodwater entity gets Despise again. There we go. We found another mana source, but it's too little too late. And Jonah scoops him up. Game 1 going to Connor. Here in the Game 2 finals between Connor and Jonah, we have Connor resolving mulligans down to 6 again, and Jonah keeping a flush 7 on the play. Let's see what they have to do. Badlands, Mox Sapphire, Mox Ruby. Kind of a mirrored start to Connor last game, going land Mox Mox. Dark Ritual resolves, and we have a kicked Probe. Now, as a reminder for what Probe does, Jonah will draw 3, then discard 2, and then Connor will discard 2 cards. 1, 2, 3. All good cards. Looks like Connor's already decided what they're discarding. But Jonah just drew Black Lotus, Time Walk, and the Scarab God. Now it looks like they have another land in hand, and they have some other card on the far right that I can't quite make out. But there's many different lines to take here. You could go land Lotus next turn. Yeah, next turn you could go land Lotus, Scarab God, Time Walk, and that would let you have the Scarab God attacking in right away. Though now that I think about it, Jonah has to discard 2 cards here, which means that you'll only be able to keep 3, won't be able to do that 4 hand line. In which case we could hope to spike a land if we discard this, I believe, Taiga in our hands. Or could still go Lotus, Scarab God next turn, and then the turn following that we could Time Walk. And then there's a lot of information with whatever the card in the far right is. But Jonah down a game, and these games, each turn matters a whole lot, so this decision can matter a whole lot. Really pondering, figuring out the turns ahead. We discard Time Walk and that other card. Rearranging the graveyard as they will be discarded under Probe for all you Phyrexian Furnace fans out there. Land Lotus. Using Lotus here. To cast the Scarab God. Scarab God, a 5/5. Ooh, and Demonic Tutor. What a rip. What a rip. Yeah, the Scarab God, a 5/5 that whenever it dies at the beginning of the next end step, it goes into its owner's hand. At the beginning of the upkeep, you scry X and your opponent loses X life, where X is the amount of zombies you control. Connor for 2 mana, going to have Jonah sacrifice their Scarab God. Now, end step trigger, that Scarab God returns. But this way, Connor's not taking 4 damage. Also, Jonah notably wasn't representing having all the mana they needed. And probably didn't tutor for a mana source. So for the fact that Jonah is able to cast Scarab God here right away means that he top decked the land, which, if you're in Connor's seat, is a little unlucky for you. But it looks like Jonah tutored for Ancestral Recall. So they're going to draw 3 cards. More mana sources. But that's not too bad when the Scarab God has that activated ability to eternalize creatures. Now, we don't have any creatures in the graveyard yet, but if this Dreadhard Butcher tries to get in the red zone, a block means that that bird can return as a 4/4. And here we're bolting the bird. Opt. We like the card, so we'll take it. Attack for 1. No blue mana, so no surprise bird. And the Butcher grows. But currently Connor is not winning this race. And Jonah now has the ability to embalm 2 creatures with the 2 blue sources they have access to. Connor attacking in. I don't know. Jonah eagerly activating to embalm this Birds of Paradise. And it comes into play as a 4/4. But, ooh, nice. Recoil. Gonna bounce that token, effectively destroying it. And then, because it was a token, Jonah can't just choose to discard it from their hand. They lose 2 full resources. But even with a pass of the turn, Connor's still getting chunked down to 5 here. They're gonna need to find an answer to this Scarab God quick. Oh, and was that a Phyrexian Obliterator? Here we're getting rid of the Scarab God, if but temporarily. Only have 3 black sources available, so we'll have to Dark Ritual to cast our Phyrexian Obliterator. And pass the turn. Scarab God comes back on the end step. And it's not looking too good, especially with less mana than we had before. Gemstone Mine no longer available. We're going to finally be able to get rid of that Scarab God. So this would have been an amazing sequence if the Obliterator wasn't the backup plan here. But right here, a forced chump and a forced sacrifice of a land. Means that we're hoping to spike Angrath's Rampage, or we're probably going to have to concede. And yeah, Jonah takes game 2. All right, we always love it when the finals match goes to a game 3. The final game of the final match. We have Connor on Grixis Arcanist versus Jonah's Glint ramp deck. And both keeping a hand of 7. Connor with a mock start. Jonah with the second Lotus start for their first hand. And it looks like they have a Dark Ritual too, so we could see a rather incredible turn 1. Here goes Opt, probably hoping to find that counterspell, but looks like we don't have it. And here goes Nissa. We've got 1 green mana in the pool. We've got a Nissa on the battlefield. Use that green mana for a Birds of Paradise. Uptick Nissa, and we're getting the beats on early on turn 1. But Connor with a swift response, going to Lightning Bolt the land. Now this is going to be an uphill battle. Looks like Jonah still has 2 lands in their hand. So going to be able to activate Nissa twice more. And that Soul Ring means that Liliana is not too far away. We get in the red zone. Connor down to 17. But we do have a Krenko on the battlefield. Now Krenko can't just attack into this Badlands though, because it'll get pumped up to a 2/3. It'd be a nice to be able to attack and start making chump blockers. But this Despise is going to clear the Liliana, so we're not too worried about Jonah playing a land and just locking at the game with Liliana upticks. And the Arcanist means that we can start casting this Lightning Bolt in our graveyard, and at least if we really need to Sui in the Arcanist to prevent the Nissa from ulting. For now, we're just going to attack for 6, Vigilance, and pass the turn after deploying another bird. Ooh, and a Lightning Bolt is very powerful here. Dreadhorde Butcher, Lightning Bolt, get rid of a land, attack, Flashback Bolt, get rid of the other land. If we send at least 2 at Nissa, then not even a chump from the bird will save her from keeping the ultimate. So yeah, Nissa takes 4. We make some goblins. The butcher grows. And we've got another land that can be animated with Nissa, but there's another lightning bolt in the graveyard, and this Dreadhorde Arcanist can flash back and get rid of it. Wow. Was this turn 1 Nissa not enough? What a roller coaster of emotions. Because it seemed too powerful to fall. But now Kranko can make a quick end of this game. Arcanist, flashback, bolt, get rid of your underground sea. Don't even technically need to throw everything at Nissa, though. Better to be safe than sorry. We're gonna block some damage, but now Connor's been casting Stone Rain after Stone Rain after Stone Rain by getting rid of the Birds of Paradises and the lands with these lightning bolts. How much damage do we have on board? 2, 3, 6, 10 damage. Oh, plus 1 more from Kranko. Kranko makes 4 goblins. We get to draw a card. Yeah, this is just snowballing out of control. And I think that's enough damage for lethal. Swing out. What do you have? A Birds of Paradise? Yeah, that's not enough. And wow, Connor takes this game, takes the match, and takes the tournament with Grixis Arcanist. Congratulations.